Hi, I'm Linda Nitzen with Sizzix. Today to show you the Ocean Breeze quilt. We're going to do this as a block of the month. This is month 3 in the series. Today is the Isosceles Triangle. It is the 4.5 inch Isosceles Triangle if you're being accurate with your pieces. So that one today would give it motion. It's this piece right here, which if you look at the overall pattern of the quilt, you're going to see some motion with this interior piece, and then you get this circular piece that goes around the entire segment of the quilt, and that is done by the half square triangles from last month and the isosceles from this month. So let me show you how to cut those out. There's a little bit of a trick to it. We're going to start with our yardage. It's 2/3 of a yard. So we need 66 of the isosceles triangles. That's your colored piece. And then we need twice that many of the background pieces because you have a background on each side. So it's 132 of the right triangles. The right triangles can be a little tricky, so I want to make sure that we show that on camera. Really easy for you today. I have strip pieced my fabric into 6-inch segments. Easiest thing to do with that is take the side of the die, snip your yardage, rip it, press it, and now you've got 6-inch strips to get you going on these. So the background is the right triangle. The easiest way is to fold your pieces. So I've got my entire strip of fabric. Just fold it in half again. Leave your selvage out of that mix. You don't want to cut into your selvage. And then I'm going to place it on the die with the edge of the fabric, that fold, right on the edge of the die back here. Okay? Now I know, and some of you that are familiar with die cutting already, you're going to say, but Linda, you've got your other isosceles triangle here in with your background. And here's where the trick and the magic comes in. Remember all those times that you tried to cut something and you said, oh, but the cutting pad wasn't over the shape and so it wouldn't cut right? Well, that's the trick we're going to use today. So I place my cutting pad over that triangle and I'm going to audition it here to make sure, but it is not over that corner here because this extra fabric I want to be able to use. Okay, this is very important. You also need right sides together. So if you have a fabric, I'm using batiks. Batiks don't have a right and a wrong side, but if you're using yardage that has a specific right and a wrong side, by placing your fabric right sides together as I showed you how to fold it, you will achieve the right and the left right triangles. Okay? So I haven't moved my hand here. I'm just going to place the cutting pad underneath, and I can put the cutting pad underneath the entire portion of that die. And I'm going to lead with the long end here into the machine. And I'm going to start cutting. Now remember I said here's the magic, because we just have our right triangles. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this completely over and over again, and that's how I'm going to get the other half of my isosceles triangles. Okay, you want to see that again? So we had it here, right? Now I'm going to utilize this leftover piece here so we don't have any waste. I'm going to flip it and then flip it again, and I'm going to lay that back on top of the die. So I need a cutting pad for the top and a cutting pad at the bottom, just like I had before. And this time we don't care if this piece is going to get cut or not. It doesn't matter. Okay, into the machine we go. Again, put it on the slight skew so that that straight blade will cut a little bit better. Even a 5% skew is better than nothing. Slide your cutting pad off, and here are the extra sides to maximize your yardage. Get that out of there, because you will need those two pieces. Now that's trash at this point. So now let's cut out the isosceles triangle. So I folded my fabric over, and I'm going to make sure that the edge of the die there and the edge of the die here are in place. I'm going to put a cutting pad at the top and a cutting pad at the bottom. Feed that into the machine. So I have the Big Shot Plus You can use any of the family of machines, big shop machines. Okay, now this piece fits right there. Now you can open these up, and sometimes, depending on how you cut them, you might get another triangle out of that. Again, if you have a lot of waste left over, it's usually operator error. So let's go ahead and just give that a quick snip off there, and we're going to get 2 more here. Anytime you have a fold, open up those folds. There's likely a whole nother shape in there for you. So because of my fabric is a batik, I don't have a right side and a wrong side. But I would stack, if I had a directional print, I would stack up my directionals so that it matched how I'm going to sew them. And ultimately the block is going to look like this. So we're going to sew 1/2, and then we'll chain stitch all those through, and then we'll come back and sew the other half on. Okay? So we take 2 pieces and we place them right sides together. And if you notice, you have them notched already on the edges. Be nice and careful because that edge is a bias. If you feel like you need to put pins in it, you go right ahead. I'm going to start with my starter piece of fabric here and run that through because I am going to sew on a diagonal here when I begin that isosceles. So we're just going to give it a little bit of that starter. So your scant 1/4 inch. Anything more than that and your block will not line up correctly. Keep those 2 pieces lined up all the way to the bottom. I'm going to chain stitch all the way through that stack. And then we're going to press towards that background piece. Be very careful when you press it not to stretch on that bias, okay? So I have pressed that triangle towards the background triangle like this, and the front of it will be nice and crisp up here at the top. Make sure that you have that right angle here pressed well, because if you don't, if you end up with it folded over a little bit, you're going to have trouble in the long run. Okay, so just make sure that that's nice and tight there. Now let's take that whole stack and we're going to sew on the other portion to make this triangle in a square. So we just need the other side of the triangle, and again we're going to put them right sides together, lining up the top portion to the bottom. Be careful not to stretch that into place. And again, I'm going to use my starter piece because I'm on the diagonal, and you've got a little bit of a lump here. Point top there, right inside, and then a few stitches, and then line up the bottom there. You are going to chain stitch all the way through. So once you've finished chain piecing the other side of that right triangle together, you need to press them. Let me show you how I've done that already for you. This is what the back side of the block should look like. So each one is facing towards the background. And when you flip it over, this is what the front of it looks like. And it will be 4.5 inches in one direction and 4.5 inches in the other. Please check the first one to make sure that your seam allowance is correct. It is very important to make sure that your seam allowance is correct in all the blocks, or you won't get this beautiful quilt in the end. So this is the series 3 for the block of the month. This is the isosceles triangle, which is this one right here. See you next month.